Hi, I'm Heather from Renegade Upcycled Goods. Today I'm going to take some slender dappled willow branches and turn them into campfire sticks for roasting marshmallows and hot dogs over a campfire. Or a fire pit in my case. I'm choosing slender ones that will be lightweight, but they're long so that you don't have to get too close to the fire. And because they're slender, I won't have to whittle as much wood off as I would a thicker branch, because you want the tip to be skinny enough to stick your marshmallow or hot dog on. So this one has a little bit of a flaw at the tip. I'm going to prune that off. This is the thickest of the campfire branches that I picked out. So I've got a little more whittling to do. I would like to make it long enough that I could put a hot dog on without any problem. So I'm going to start way back here and sort of whittle forward or toward the tip. Just shaving a small amount off. I'm using a knife. This is a pocket knife with a smooth blade. You could also use probably just about any knife that has a smooth blade, such as a utility knife, kitchen knife. This has been dried in the sun for a couple of days, so that might make it easier to whittle than when it's wet. However, when you want to use it in your campfire, it's probably a good idea to soak it in water so that it doesn't catch on fire, just like you would a skewer. You could also use slender, young branch tips as skewers on your grill. You'd probably want to make sure to peel off the bark first. I have read that only the white willow has an aspirin-like substance in the bark, so I don't think you have to worry about having any medicinal side effects from using other willow branches. These are dappled willows, and from the research I've done so far, they are extremely harmless to use with food. So these would be good for skewers, the campfire sticks I'm making, spoons, chopsticks, any food related utensils that you want to use them for. So far I'm doing this kind of roughly, and then I'll smooth it out later. Still too thick back here, so I'm moving back. If you don't have a pocket knife, you might be able to do some work at making this skinnier with a sanding block. Like start with it real rough and then get smoother and smoother. For steaks and things that don't need to be real smooth, I have used just the sidewalk to scrape the stick on to get a point. For these, I want a nice smooth surface so I don't have splinters in my food. Be careful not to break off the tip. Okay, now I'm going to tip my knife. I was cutting into it this way. I'm going to kind of tip it perpendicular to the wood, or even slightly backward, and just scrape the wood so I get less off at a time. Well, actually, it looks like I need to thin out the tip a little bit, and then I'll start doing that. Just very carefully so I don't break it off. Whittle down any thick spots. Okay. With a pocket knife, since it folds up, you want to be careful when scraping backwards. You want to make sure you're not putting pressure so that it'll fold onto your fingers. It's pretty smooth, but if you wanted to, you could go back over it with sandpaper. I'm going to put a little bit more of a pointy tip on there. Mainly because it's kind of splintery right now. There, it's got a nice smooth tip. In the interest of safety for your campfire sticks, if you have these little pieces of branches sticking off, you might want to snap those off. You could use a pruner for some of them bigger ones. Try to get it as flush as possible. For these little ones, you could try using the pruner or just use your pocket knife. That can leave still, even with the pruned ones or anything, it can leave a little sharp spot, but at least it's not sticking out real far. If you have little kids, you might want to make sure to smooth them out more. Just kind of snip them off with a pruner and then go back over with a pocket knife to make them really flush. Oh, that's nice and smooth already. You also want it pretty thin on the end to get your hot dog or marshmallow on there. So I think I'll start back even farther. I want to be careful not to snap off the end. Try to just whittle a little bit, shave a little bit off at a time. So it's very sharp. It's got a nice skinny end for marshmallows. If I wanted to put hot dogs on here, I might want to make this a little longer. I'll try that with the next one. this end has an extra little branch toward the tip. The easiest thing to do would be to take pruners or a saw and just chop off this end and then whittle this part to a point, as opposed to trying to cut this off and work around it. So I'm going to take my pruners and just prune that end off. That's a little bit nicer. You can also kind of prune it to a bit of a point if you wanted. Like if you were just kind of trying to use this stick for a stake or something like that, a stake in the ground. This is the first campfire stick that I whittled. I made it kind of short. I think I'm going to go back and make that longer. This is the second one I did. And it's a little bit uneven, like there's a skinny spot here and then a thicker spot here. It has a nice tip though. This is the third one I did. I've got a nice long area to put the hot dog or marshmallows on. It's got a tip that's not too sharp, but it's kind of pointy. And it's a little bit more even, and I think I'm getting a little bit better. I've got another little technique to show you. Here, let me get a little more done. I'll just give you a sample of it. Is to kind of tip it really, not going real deep, go real thin slivers by angling it real low and kind of just shaving off like that. So when you want to really get a very particular spot thinner, you can do it that way. This branch has a bunch of these little tiny spots where branches were trying to grow, I guess. Little tiny ones. And they had just little tiny sharp little prickles basically where those were. So I just took my knife for the entire thing and just sort of scraped it with the blade at the back side of the scrape, and scraped the whole branch to kind of smooth that out. There are also these little sort of splits, marred areas where there were bigger branches sticking off, and I sort of treated them similarly. I have a little spot right here that needs to go. And you might want to support your knife by putting your thumb behind it so it's not trying to bend. Just make sure you don't put your thumb on the actual blade. So, to kind of overview this, I take slightly, come and focus. I take a slightly deeper cut for starting the whittling to get it overall thinner in the area that I want thinner. If you only want to be able to put 1 or 2 marshmallows on, you don't need but an inch or 2. Probably 2 inches would be a good idea. Whittled down. If you want to put a hot dog, you might want more like 3 inches. And just take and figure out how far back you want. Whittle from there to the tip, focusing on areas where you see it bump up, like this one is a little thicker here, so I'm going to focus on getting that lump down. Don't worry about coming to a point until near the end. And this is where this starts coming in more handy. When you want to get a little more fine-tuned, then you angle it almost flat to kind of scrape off a very thin layer, sort of like shaving the wood. I do kind of short strokes. I find that it's been really helpful. So like here's a raised area and a dip. I don't know if you can see that very well. Let's see. The hammock is getting in the way. Okay, so it kind of dips down here and then raises up here. So I want to whittle down the raised area and not go in the dip. That one's a little bit of a deeper cut. I want this to go back a little farther, so I'm kind of going in deep and curving up, so I'm not cutting it skinny in front, too far in front. But it's a good way to practice your whittling skills. It's good to start on starter projects. The best starter project is just putting a point on a stake. And this is a good second project. I think for a starting project for somebody who's like 12 or something years old or something like that, it would probably be a good idea to have either a pocket knife that locks into place, if there is such a thing, I don't know, or a knife that doesn't fold, just for a little extra safety. But other than that, I think this would be a good project for kids 12 and up who have been properly taught how to be safe with a knife. Some kids might even be able to do it younger than that. There we go. I think I'm just going to kind of fix the tip of this. It's a little bit blunt, like with like kind of pokey edges. I want to make it not so kind of splintery around the edges by putting a point on it. Ooh, that's nice. That'll work great. So I've definitely improved my skills. I wasn't really trying to improve my skills much with the stakes, but I was kind of getting the feel of using the knife. So it was a really good first project. And this has been a really excellent second project. I'm just going to go back and make that first one I did a little bit better, make a longer pick part. And maybe I'll get a video of us using them. It looks like dung. Do you see it?
Anyone who wants a free sun is welcome.
Thank you. Wow, Christy brought Capri Suns and Brooke made cupcakes. It's like we have a party and they're like actual like people that come over and like bring something. Like adults.
What do you mean?
Like your guests. Adult guests.
Well, I mean, we don't usually all eat the same dinner. So,
Everybody's chipping in.
Nice.
food all the time, so. I took them out like 30 minutes ago.
What should we do first? Should we put the... We can probably still cook hot dogs even with the grill on there, huh?
Yeah? What's the grill for? Beans. We're cooking the beans on the fire.
We're gonna put the beans over the fire.
How are we gonna do that when the fire's so big? Does the grill have like an elevated...
Oh my goodness, that skewers the hot dog so well. I have to actually put it in straight though. Did you hear me say not to catch your stick on fire? Because I didn't wet these down. I think you're supposed to soak them in water beforehand or something. I'd stick the cooking end in a bucket.
Oh, I know when it's done.
When it's as hot as you want it. The end, the tip was, ooh, really cooked. The stick side is not so much.
Yeah, like, I'm like half done.
What? Let me see. I'm trying to see. Ooh, mine's looking good.
I like the sizzling.
A good hot dog, honey.
It's hard to scoop.
Good hot dog.
It moves.
We enjoyed using our cooking sticks over our fire pit. We used 2 store-bought birch skewers for the marshmallows. They are a little bit thicker on the tips than the skewers I made from the dappled willows. Probably at least twice as thick. I have 3 of the 4 willow cooking sticks left. I'm not sure what happened to the 4th one, if somebody put it in the fire or what. But either kind that you use, when you're done using them, if you don't throw them in the fire or put them in the compost, you can reuse them with easy cleanup by just pruning the ends. I'll start with these 2 birch sticks. Okay, this marshmallow stick is sticky with marshmallow all the way down to about here, so I'm going to cut off just a little bit more than the sticky part. And then that can go in the compost. And then I'll do the same for this one. The store-bought marshmallow sticks worked great for the marshmallows. They were so fat that I didn't even try to use them for the hot dogs. These worked great for the hot dogs. They just went right in. They didn't make them split apart or anything. And I didn't wet them beforehand. I probably should have. So it kind of charred the wood here, but it didn't catch on fire. So I could just cut off to, like, since this is going to be whittled, I could just cut off the tip here and start whittling around the charred area. There's some bumpy stuff here though. It might be hard to whittle, so I'll cut a little farther back. And then that can go in the fire, the trash, wherever you want. Or if you dip the end in the fire to burn off any of the meat, you could put it, just kind of burn off the meat juices and then put the rest in the compost. Or if you need garden stakes, you could just leave them as they are and use them as garden stakes. Or cut off the meaty tips and make a point that's a little more appropriate for garden stakes. And I do kind of need some more garden stakes, so maybe that's what I'll do here. Let's see how the charred area, this isn't very charred. Let me start with a really charred one. This charred one here. Yeah, it doesn't go very deep, and it's like super easy. It's not any harder to prune, or it's not any harder to whittle than it was before it was charred. I'm going to try whittling a tip similar to what was already on here when I bought these from the grocery store, and see how this birch whittles in comparison to the willow. It's a little bit harder. The wood seems a little harder, denser. It gives a nice sharp line when I cut it. Seems to cut nicely. So if you don't have your own branches that you want to use for your campfire cooking sticks, you can buy the store-bought wooden ones and then keep reusing them until they're too short. Heck, you might even be able to put it in a pencil sharpener. Ooh, maybe I should try that. This is the tip that I whittled, and it's about at the angle that it was when I bought it at the store. This is the tip that I got when I put it in my electric pencil sharpener, and it's nice and smooth, long and pointy. It's very much like the shape of a pencil. So that worked really well, actually, with this store-bought birch stick, and was super simple and easy. I found the fourth willow stick in the house and cut off the pick tip, and I tried to stick it in the pencil sharpener, but it was too thick. These are thinner than a pencil, but this is thicker than a pencil. I would say that the willow cooking sticks were overall simple and easy to make. If you want to dry them out, which might make it easier to whittle, that takes some advanced planning, but you could probably just cut it off right when you want to use one. Everybody just prune their own branch, peel their own bark, whittle the end if they want, or you could even just break it off where it's already skinny and use that to cook without doing any whittling if you wanted. But you might have little prongs kind of other branches sticking off in the way. And also, if you get too thin toward the green tip, growing tip, it'll be very flexible and you might have trouble controlling how it turns, over the fire. It won't stick straight out. It'll bend down, depending on exactly what kind of branch you use. But willows are very bendy overall. Certainly a weeping willow branch isn't going to be very good when it's the long cylinder parts that hang down. It went overall, though, really, really well. And even though I didn't wet the sticks, they didn't catch on fire, which kind of surprised me. They did get a little bit charred. They were great for hot dogs. I think that I whittled them a little too thin for marshmallows. I think they probably would have slid off. The weight of the marshmallow, when it got warm and soft, it would have pulled the body of the marshmallow right off of the stick. But those fatter sticks worked really well for that. So let me know if you try this project or have done something similar. What other woods have you used to make cooking sticks or campfire sticks? And what have you cooked on those kinds of sticks? See you later. Check me out on Facebook.